Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me from the market site in Times Square, New York City, we have Dr. Merav Ozair, global leading emerging technologies expert, as well as Johann Kerbrat, head of crypto at Nasdaq listed Robinhood. And we're here to discuss post-election impact on digital assets and the global regulatory framework. It is great to have the both of you with us. Welcome back to Trade Talks. Welcome to Trade Talks. Judging by the post-election impact, Merav, the digital asset space took it pretty well in stride here.
Yeah, I mean, they were very happy. And Robinhood, I mean, you can talk about it later, but the entire, there were a lot of companies, especially the financial sector, what was gaining from that. But mostly, I think the companies that are associated with the crypto world, like Robinhood, Coinbase, MicroStrategy, they like double digit at least. In the day after, the Wednesday after, even Bitcoin went up. Dogecoin, of course, we'll talk about it later maybe.
Yeah.
So all this, space, got a lot of energy because, the whole idea is that, there are promises. The Trump administration has promised before the election that they will do all the good things for the crypto space and, less scrutinization, less regulation by enforcement, friendly regulators, kicking out Gensler. Trump was saying that he wants to bring the mining of Bitcoin to the U.S. All positive things.
Yeah.
So this is how it reacted positively.
Johann, which is so interesting when you think about Bitcoin at its all-time highs. We weren't talking about this from a national perspective until this year. In my mind, when you think about why it's at all-time highs, yes, we got spot Bitcoin ETFs. But when you think about the regulatory promise, we saw what that did to the digital asset space. That seems to be the key there.
Yeah, no, I think if you look at the past week, clearly there is a big volume coming from not just the retail, but also the institution. Institutions are thinking that next year it's going to be a bit more clarified what you can do or not in crypto, and therefore they want to get into the space before next year. So we are seeing a lot of movement on the two sides, on the institution and customers, and on Robinhood we are happy to serve the customers with all assets.
So when you think about, Johann, when you think about the US election and how it could shape the global crypto industry in 2025, like I said, I think US regulatory framework is really a core catalyst. Anything else that we should be aware of, or do you think that's really what everyone's waiting for?
I think we are waiting on that. There is a lot of region that we are starting to build a framework. We saw it with MiCA in Europe. We also see it in Singapore. They're starting to implement some framework, but not everything is defined. I think in the US, we're also at the very beginning. We started to work on the stablecoin bill. We started to work on FIT 21, but none of that is done. So there is a lot of work coming up, and Robinhood, we are excited to work with policymakers to make sure that we can have built to support the industry.
Yeah, you guys have been active in advocacy and supporting the industry. Merav, I think another thing, in the course of the coverage, I've been covering this space since 2018, which is a long time, for digital assets in the media space. My first conference, Consensus at the Midtown Hilton in the lobby. I'm looking at Casey over there. I think the way the conversation has matured, particularly in the past 12 to 18 months, is around user experience, which suggests maturation in the space. Separating itself from this ethos of developing and engineering and working on integrating platforms. Would you agree that those are positive signs?
Yeah, these are all positive signs, and especially if you think about the institutional investors like JP Morgan, for example. It's all about platform. The platform that they've been working in the space, I think, for 10 years already. And they are a good example of institutional investors that are really in, and I think they are waiting for that. And I think just on November 6th, and I think this is not a coincidence, they announced that they are rebranding Onyx to Kinexix, something like that. I don't know exactly, and they say that they are poised to accelerate blockchain technology and tokenization into mainstream financial services. So they are building, and what is Onyx? It's a platform, of everything, from transactions of foreign currency, tokenization, and everything else. And it's global. So they have,
which I think that rebrand is smart, because when you think of Onyx, you think of like a black box, right?
Exactly.
When you put the word connect or the connotation around
exactly. That's the integration, because they were talking about interoperability
right.
and all of that.
And the underlying technology, the blockchain part of it, Johann, interoperability, the more it improves and we see more liquidity, within this space. Again, that was something that we were looking for as it continues to mature. So I think, that's another positive side when you think about the infrastructure of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the tokenization of real world assets is something that is coming. At Robinhood, I think we are in the very middle of it. We are used to the traditional finance space, we are used to the crypto space, and we see the advantage of each. When you think about stablecoin, for example, it's a very perfect example of how blockchain has been able to improve a technology where you don't have to wait, just business hours to send a wire. You can do it at any time for any amount of money, and there is no risk of reversal. I think we are going to see more and more of this for different type of asset, not just the dollar. We're going to start to see it for other type of real world assets, and it's going to be made available to more people and also the institution as well.
I think it's also important to recognize that sometimes we tend to think very US or Western centric when in fact billions of people leverage stable coins for cross-border payments and they're developing local micro
and this is exactly what the new platform that they're mentioning is that they want to branch to other foreign currencies. So that's exactly in line with what just you mentioned here, is that okay, they have their own stable coin and JPM coin, but that will be facilitating all the other transactions which are global. So that's the move that they're going to.
We see that a lot in some countries where there is hyperinflation. They want to be able to access the dollar. And very easily they can go from a stable coin and then use it and keep it under their custody. So it's something that we're seeing a lot of usage coming up.
It's also easier to use a stable coin if you want to work with integrate between decentralized platforms and off-chain platforms. So the translation is much easier than going through for crypto and then
I just think we tend to, and I'm sure there's going to be more education around this as regulatory frameworks play out, but we tend to think of digital assets as either a store of value, a trading mechanism, how the fluctuations and volatility within this asset class functions. But again, this is literally building microeconomies that never had access to capital formation until the advent of digital assets.
Yeah, and I think it's going to help to us to move to the other applications like the metaverse, like the tokenization, like all the DeFi applications. So once we start moving into this direction and people get more familiar with these platforms and understand, okay, it's not the end of the world. It's not like what that it's so bad like what people have been talking about, and we have more friendly regulation that supports it. So you don't have to be afraid that someone's going to knock on the door. And then we're going to move to the other things that I'm more excited about, like the DeFi, like the tokenization, like even the metaverse. We were talking about the special computing some time ago, and that's going to open up so many opportunities.
Yeah. So Johann, let's go back to this bridging the gap between traditional finance and digital assets. On Robinhood, you offer a unified platform for trading both stocks and crypto, and to me that suggests that integration is happening and it's focused on the user experience at the end of the day, and that's how this adoption grows.
Absolutely. I think something I say often is crypto was made by engineer for engineer. It's something that is very technical. A lot of time we focus on the protocol or the underlying asset instead of focusing on the use case. And I think something that we really spend time on at Robinhood is investing on the user experience, UI, making sure that people understand with educational content how to get into the space, what do you do with it, what is a transfer, what is a self-custody wallet, all these kind of things has been on top of our mind for a long time. And for us, I think the future is really about how do we bridge the two even more. So how do you tokenize current system into the blockchain? How do you use the advantage of the blockchain to reduce the cost of maintaining a platform and all this kind of thing? So yeah.
I mean, I think back in when NFT was in the hype, one of the things that people were criticizing is that it's still like you have to go through all kinds of hoops in order to really invest in NFT. So the average person probably will not do that. If we'll be able to pass that and make it like like a top that everyone wants, which I think this is what you're working on.
Yeah.
Then I think all this adoption.
Well, we did that in the late 90s and early 2000s with the online equity trading.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, but we haven't got to that in the digital space, in the digital asset space,
But
and
it's
that's
a young
what needs to happen.
asset class,
Right.
and
Right.
our culture now is like point and click and things are
Right.
done for you.
Absolutely.
But I think back to the user experience, Johann, it really resonated for me when we were at Consensus this year in May. One of my best interviews, the woman that I had on with me was like, we need to be nimble and think like startups and be able to advance the innovation. But this ethos is us versus them. We need the banks. We need the big technology
Right.
companies
Of course.
to scale.
Absolutely.
I thought that was a very critical point, and the industry is outwardly discussing this now.
And it's something that we invest a lot of time on. So we've been talking to many industries and trying to get them together to help us make Robinhood more efficient, faster, and help at the end of the day also reduce the cost to the end customer. And something that we recently announced is we joined the USDG partnership, where it's a stable coin that we can use between different companies and help move the funds a lot faster, also during the weekend, also after hours and things like this.
I think now we have the retail, mostly retail oriented, digital space, digital asset space. And this is what we're all talking about. We need institutional investors, and it's kind of like, yes, the retail, we want them, even to come more, but they will come more if the institutional investors are in. Mm-hmm. So the mass adoption that we're all talking about and waiting for, it has to come with their involvement. Without that, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So we need to make it easier for them, and part of it is clarity of regulation, because they are not happy with that. They don't know what to do, and they have a platform, as you know.
Right.
I mean, and JP Morgan is not the only one. We have other major banks who are already having tons of platforms and things to just give me the green light and I'm going to do it.
Yeah, well, the BMI, but custody. I mean, these things are happening. But I want to get back to regulation for a moment here, Johann, and why being SEC regulated, how that benefits Robinhood on customer protections, and the industry wants this framework. And I think it's done a good job at trying to educate policymakers, and you've been proactive about it.
Yeah, no, I think we as a company at Robinhood, we are regulated by FINRA, by the SEC, by the New York DFS. We know how to work with regulator. But at the end of the day, for the digital asset space, we didn't have this clarity. And so this regulation by enforcement that we had for the past few years has not been helping. We've seen so many issues still happening. What happened with FTX is a good example 2 years ago. We need actual regulation and policy that exchanges can take in place to protect the customer. So, for example, rules around custody, not commingling firm funds and customer funds, like basic things like that don't really exist on the digital asset space.
Right.
But if we have them, we can protect the customers, and we know at Robinhood that we can work with that.
Yeah, I think part of the challenge is to perhaps in the past, regulators are trying to bucket it into an equity or a commodity, right?
Right.
And I think there's more understanding, perhaps following the EU model, where
Right.
maybe it's its own asset class. I mean, the basic things like KYC and custody, of course, and all the basics of
Mika.
any trading.
Mika,
Right.
I think, Mika is a good start. Even though it has its own problems, and
Right.
you probably know you're
Absolutely.
French, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But they have classified, different types of tokens, like the e-money and the utility and the reference assets, etc. They're not talking about tokenization as we understand it yet, but it's a good start. I mean, they're still trying to figure out, whether it's good or bad. We have all kinds of revisions to that. But we don't have anything like that here, even though there is a proposal. I think it's financial 21st Act or something like that.
That's
just passed the House. We're still waiting, for the Congress, etc. And that one does classify. That gives some classification between when it's a commodity and when it's security, meaning that it's not going to be only under the purview of the SEC, like what Gensler like to think. It's everything is security, but there are cases when it might be security, might be a commodity. So it does appreciate that it has different types of applications.
Right. So it definitely is a start. And look, I mean, everything, data law is still evolving.
Right.
So it's not just specific to digital assets.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Robinhood's plans for 2025 for global expansion. Speaking of the EU, what are the plans there?
Well, so we actually launched in the EU in December last year, so we are in the middle of applying for MiCA and receiving our MiCA license. And the other thing that we recently announced is the acquisition of Bitstamp, which is a fairly large cryptocurrency exchange. We expect the close to happen in H1 of next year, so we have a lot of plan there.
It is a huge year, and then this catalyst behind you now, which was an outlier until last week, is another tailwind at your back. A lot of things are said on the campaign trail and how it actually plays out, and of course that's beholden to how frameworks are developed. How do you envision the new administration approaching?
I hope, all the promises. I mean, people make a lot of promises before the elections. That they will they will give you if they gold, even to you vote for them. So, good promises. This is why everyone is happy. I mean, in that space. But we have to see. We have to see how it's gonna pan out. I mean, we do want to see more friendly regulators. Gensler is definitely not the one that has been friendly to the digital asset space.
In fairness, though, he did make a point that the legislators need to legislate.
Yeah, but he doesn't give any guidance. I mean, whenever whether it was Robinhood or Coinbase, etc., approached the SEC and said, okay, give us guidance. The only thing that he said, okay, how we test. The only thing that he said, nothing beyond that. So yes, the legislature has to do something, but the SEC and other like the CFTC and etc., all these agencies also give guidance. He never gave any guidance.
Okay, let's stop there for a moment now. The Doji, not the coin. Okay, if we're thinking about the composition of agencies and regulations and making that more efficient. Does that change the calculus?
Maybe,
right.
Maybe. I mean, if we're gonna make it more efficient, maybe we don't need so many agencies.
Right.
Or maybe we're going to consolidate them because having different agencies is a little bit a headache for every.
Which is interesting with Chevron being overturned.
Yeah.
That is true.
Right. So I mean, let's we'll take the legal hat off now. Johann, I want to ask you in terms of offerings and product for crypto customers. Clearly, the ETF was a big catalyst. Is anything lacking there? Where do you think improvement can be made?
Oh, I think there's a lot that can be made, but for the ETF, we were happy to list them on the platform. So now people can buy Bitcoin and Ethereum either through their brokerage account, their retirement account, or also on Robinhood Crypto. On our side, we just listed this morning 4 assets on the platform, and so we've seen a lot of enthusiasm from our customers. And I think we're just going to keep listening to them, seeing what they want us to add on the platform, and keep building.
It certainly has gotten more intuitive. I've noticed that.
That is great.
I don't know, on a high level, have you seen Coinbase customers gravitate or new customers gravitate to the ETF wrapper, or are they still organically?
I think it's different type of traders. Some people prefer still the ETF because it's a bit easier. They don't have to make the selection.
Right.
There's also the retirement tax advantage for a lot of traders, so they are looking at that. And then there's the fee structure of some of these ETFs that was different from using a different platform. So we are still seeing a lot of people using just Robinhood Crypto because they want to have the actual assets, transfer it into their self-custody, or transfer it into the DeFi world to do more things.
Oh, that's so interesting. All right, Merav, in the last minute here, what will you be looking for in Q1? How realistically, how do you think 2025 plays out?
Realistically, I mean, the distance is a slow motion.
I mean, the first 100 days is always like a show me.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
So if we start seeing like actual movement, like okay, they are putting together some legislation, all these proposals are really being, pushed forward. And moving, to the House, going to the one that was already voted in the House, going to the Congress, the one that hasn't, I mean, we haven't done anything, is getting approved. So if we start seeing that, then I'm more optimistic that we're going to end with some good legislation.
Okay, let's leave it on a positive note. Appreciate both of your insights. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.